Forgot about basketball from Maui yesterday afternoon. Paulie goes, ESPN2. Sent me a text. Tune in, overtime. All of a sudden, I'm watching Memphis and UConn. Dan Hurley lost his mind. Lost his mind. Cost his team. You know, Penny Hardaway's Memphis team is, I don't know, they've been a disappointment. I think they made the tournament 2 times in the last 7 years. He's had talent there, but UConn, you expect them to win those games. Here is Dan Hurley after the loss.
That over the back call at that point of the game, there was no attempt to block out. There was a player on Memphis that made a half-ass effort to rebound that basketball, and Liam McNeely high-pointed that rebound. For that call to be made at that point of the game was a complete joke, all right? And then for me, I don't know what happened. I might have lost my balance by the absurdity of the call, or maybe I tripped. But if I made that call at that point, I would have ignored the fact that I was on my back. If I made that call, I would have ignored that.
Okay, he's right about the call, but he can't lose his mind in a situation like that. It goes back to what I've said about these coaches. They want you to have poise, but they don't. You have to have poise too. Yes, you're upset about it, but you have to have composure. You want your player. Imagine if your player did that. You'd go crazy. Well, you can't do that. And I know this is who he is. This is his personality. But in a situation like that, a bad call. But you can't let everything bother you that you throw a temper tantrum. It's a bad call. Okay, regroup. Move on. Recover. You can't add to it. So you added to a bad call. And then you get teed up there. Yes, Paul.
I have a poll question off this. Dan Hurley constantly losing his mind on the sidelines during games is entertaining and good for his team or self-defeating?
Well, it'd be a recency bias if we said self-defeating.
I actually think his intensity is what makes their team great. It's Saban-esque. He's completely and always unsatisfied and almost unhinged.
Well, you worry sometimes, though, that the message will get lost because you're constantly like this. It's just like with your kids. If you're yelling and constantly yelling, then does it really, register? But when you do raise your voice, it's like, uh-oh, Dad's upset. He's always raising his voice. And yes, I love the intensity. I'm thrilled. I'm thinking about this last night. In the moment, I'm watching him melt down. I go, thank God he's still in college. Like we still need these college coaches that you tune in and you are watching them. Because that's the way it used to be. When I covered the Big East and you had Louis Carnesecca and you had Jim Boeheim, you had John Thompson, Raleigh Massimino, you tuned in because you were watching coaches coach their players. And I do that with Dan Hurley. And look, he's a great guest on the show, but he knows in that moment he cost his team. Now it's early in the year, it's a November game, doesn't mean anything, may not mean anything. But if we're talking April, then it could mean something. And that's the only thing that I would be concerned about is you're so involved and these things get to you. You have to have a strainer. Okay? You're not going to catch everything. There are certain things you have to let go. And he, at times, has a hard time letting those things go. Yes, Eden.
Yeah, I would think that Dan Hurley is more Brian Kelly than Nick Saban, where you're watching him sometimes and you're like, dude, what are you doing, man? Chill out. Relax. Look how red your face is right now.
Yeah.
Maybe more of Bobby Knight than I don't know anybody else, but I don't know if it kind of what makes him great is that. So I don't know if you could have one without the other. Maybe I don't know if he would be as great of a coach as he is maybe without that kind of fire burning. Yeah,
I agree. Bob Knight couldn't change.
Yeah,
Mike Krzyzewski had a temper. People didn't talk about it, but he had a temper, and certainly in practice, a temper. Coaches have that. That's the old school kind of, I'm going to get through to you. I'm going to yell at you. I mean, you watch games now. I mean, it's commonplace that you're watching coaches yelling at the officials, yelling at their players, dropping F-bombs. It's there. But, Dan Hurley, I love the fire. I think that's who he is. He's not going to change. But that cost him. That cost them game against Memphis. Marvin's still flying the school colors today. How did you feel after that loss?
It's funny. Me, my wife, and my son, when the kid's solo ball hit the shot to go into overtime, we screamed. The neighbor next to us he texted us, so you're watching the UConn game? And so the call is made over the back call. My wife is going. This is the only sport she's into. UConn men's basketball. That's it. She was like, this is bleeping bleep.
Wow. Okay.
So we're not the ones to judge him because we were doing the exact same thing Hurley was doing, but we're just doing it from the couch.
Yeah.
And on top of that, Hurley was getting on the refs the entire game. Like there were F-bombs. I mean, there's always an F-bomb with Hurley, but the entire game he was on top of those refs.
But he can be down 5 or up 45, and it just feels like he's that same guy. He also said that, I don't know too many back-to-back national championship teams that get that type of a whistle. There aren't any back-to-back national champions.
Love it.
Just you. But he's right. But it cost him. I'm glad, though, he's still in college basketball. Yes, Marvin.
Don't worry about it. In April, the games aren't really close anyway,
Wow.
so it's all right.
Okay.
Wow. Calling your shot.
All right. I hear you.